Welcome back to another fantastic episode of I'm Gonna Talk and You're Gonna Listen. This is episode 94, and we're gonna go through our engagement buddies. I want to thank everybody for leaving a little note after every show. It helps if the note actually says something, or comment on the episode, or comment what's on your mind, and I'll read it in the next one. Thank you, RC, for saying hi. Hope you got something out of the video. Hope I said something interesting. CDK, my number one engagement buddy, says, "What if there was a way?" And I think about that a lot, and that's probably the number one thing on my mind. What if there was a way? And I feel like that's what we're all searching for. Is there a way? And if you could find Uganda Knuckles, he could show you the way. So that was it for engagement buddies. Thank you. Oh, yeah. So with that, let's just go over a little bit of house cleaning. I did a thing today. I made a foot-high planter box thingy out of salvaged 2x6s, and I didn't have any 4x4s, so I sawed 4 pieces of 2x6 into foot-high 2x6s, and that's what I braced the corners with. I thought that was going to be way too flimsy. I think the side-to-side's a little flimsy, and I kind of wish that I had offset them, but I'm not sure that would have helped. I think having 4x4 corners is much better than 2x6s, but try as I might, I just could not bring myself to rip out the one 4x4 I had using as a piece of fence post. So my one tore up piece of 4x4 is like a piece of fencing. So, and I'm not going to buy a 4x4 from the store. The last time I went, I was going to try to buy a 4x4 from the store, and a big box, and I couldn't even find, there wasn't anybody within like half of a store of the carpentry area. So I was gonna have somebody chop it up for me, and 5 foot length or 6 foot length or something, just so I could get it home. And nope, couldn't find anybody. So I used 2x6s. Its side to side is like, like if I really leaned on it sideways, it would crash. But other than that, it's pretty sturdy. So tomorrow I'm gonna throw some weed barrier down, and then I'm gonna throw all the dirt back in it, and then I'm going to plant the tomatoes that are acclimating. I'm gonna plant the tomatoes that are acclimating. I think I can definitely fit 6 in there. I want to try to fit 8, though. Maybe if I can get like one right up against each corner or something. I want to be able to fit 8 in there. I want a lot of tomatoes this year. Last year we had, I think, maybe 2 that were producing. We had at least 1. I feel like we had 2 that were kind of moderately producing, and the rest fitzed out because they just weren't in a good sunny spot. This one, though, I think I want to get at least 6 really like high producing tomatoes. I want tons of tomatoes this year. We ate them with like breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. They were absolutely amazing. Like I looked forward to every meal just like the explosion of flavor from those tomatoes. So yeah, that was my big thing today, and that maybe doesn't sound like a lot of work, but I did it by myself, which was quite a challenge, and I don't have any sawhorses. I don't have any clamps, to clamp it all together. This was old, warped, bowed decking from who knows how long that my friend brought me, and I just used the good pieces and sawed it all up, and it would split, and I'd hammer it and screw it back together and saw the bad bits off and just kept going. And I had 7 totes I had to dig out and move, and all of that's going back in there, and all the free dirt that I salvaged is going back in there, and God willing, I've got enough. I can scour enough dirt to fill that thing up. I think it's going to be close, even if I scavenge up all of my dirt. I think it's going to be close. So I'm going to try. The totes are just a little bit higher than that, but I only have 7 totes worth of dirt to spare. But I've got a big pile of dirt. It was like 6, 7, 8 wheelbarrow loads. So I'm confident that I can fill up the planter box that I made. And I'll just say really quick, dirt, crazy expensive, crazy expensive. I know I've bitched about this on the channel before. People say, "Oh, dirt's free. Everyone gives dirt away." Blah 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 blah. I haven't seen a free dirt sign in years, and I always used to say, "Oh, if you see free dirt all the time, if you can get free dirt all the time, why don't you go get it?" And it's always crickets. My neighbors own a ton of property, and they're always excavating. But I think they trade all their dirt inside their family, because I see them bringing just backhoe loads, tractor loads of dirt back and forth, and I scrimp and scram for my little bit of dirt, and I'm happy with it. I said I was gonna ask him for cow pies, and then somebody told me that stuff's actually worth like a ton of money. It's like organic cow pies are actually worth like a ton of money. So I just haven't figured out how I'm gonna broach that topic yet. I hadn't thought about that, but once the person told me, I'm like, that actually makes sense. Like, I could really, offend them potentially asking for their cow pies if their cow pies are worth a ton. So, which is funny because I've been at other places, like at my friend's place, and man, I know horse apples aren't as like advantageous because they have seeds and stuff, because their stomachs don't break things down the same as cows. But like, man, for free, like, oh no, it's gonna have some seeds or something in it. It's dry as all get out, and I had to stir it up and wet it down for a long time, but it eventually just turned into dirt. Every once in a while it would grow some weird thing, but it wasn't bad. It's just not optimal, whereas like cow tummies digest everything. Anyway, enough of that. I'm spending other house cleaning stuff. I usually save this to the end, but I feel like talking about it now. I've made tons and tons and tons of little updates on Bunker. The Bunker Codes rebranding, Bunker Basics. It is up to, I'll tell you how many words in a second. It's up to 106K words. I think I put 10K more words in this, which is just nuts. I added about a million teeny tiny things specific to hydration. I added a little bit more to crypto that I thought was like a little too advanced at the time, but now I'm like, you know what, I better put it in here. I added a bit more context for GPS stuff, and then I have a new section called electronics necromancy that I think it was implied before, bringing electronics back from the dead. But I wrote a little bit more. I might still go back and write a little bit more about digital radios now that I am like significantly better at digital radios now. I've probably spent upwards of like 20 plus hours in the last couple weeks just on digital radios. So I might go add that to my radios section. I added a whole new section on AI. It was kind of like a tongue-in-cheek, kind of a joke, kind of an inside joke before, but it's 2025 now, and AI has just about taken over everything. I added a little bit more religious stuff, not a ton, for the two people on the planet that own the the collector's edition. I didn't copy all of that religious stuff in here, so you still have lots of unique content. Even when I publish the art book, you'll still have a lot of unique content. Some of it has made its way into this in some form or fashion, and some of it might make its way into the next one. I'm not sure. I have also added some more context about a lot more context about water and hydration. I added a little bit more into religious literature, and I added a little bit more religious stuff into the Losing People, which was from the director's, the collector's edition. But most of that had already made its way back into here anyway, and it seemed like it fit. And it was kind of heavy on my heart to pushing me towards including it. I think I might have written more in the animal area too, but still nowhere near as much as the collector's edition. I went really hog wild on the collector's edition. But I started writing some additional stuff back in here. And I think that's partially because we've been dealing with coyotes. I also wrote way more about bears because there's been 3 bear attacks since I updated the bear. Three black bear confirmed fatalities. So I updated that section. I think I might have talked about some of this in a prior episode, but I think it's important because there's a lot of new bunker codes owners from like a recent giveaway, and they may be curious as to the rebranding. I'm going to be doing a whole episode about just the rebranding. I'm also debating throwing in an article here about there being beach cougars. There were cougars that had made it to the beach, and I thought that was really interesting. Unfortunately, I found out that when they tranked it to rescue it and go put it somewhere that was not beach related, it stayed in the water for too long and they weren't able to resuscitate it, and that really bothered me. It felt like the cougar wasn't really hurting anybody, and I get really frustrated when hikers are in the woods and they have a cougar sighting, and then for some reason there's this notion that they have to go put the cougar down. It's like the cougar's living in the one place you have left, and so the fact that they couldn't even rescue a cougar from the beach and go put it back in the forest, I don't know. I'm kind of sick and tired of just the overall lack of like wildlife conservation. I think coyotes are an absolute menace. I think raccoons are absolutely a ridiculous species of animal to ever exist. They all have their purposes, but like it makes me wonder like how what it would take for the cougar population to actually be out of control, and I'm sure we're nowhere near that. Same thing with like lynx and bobcats and stuff. Kind of one of the reasons why I thought this up is like Mr. Guns and Gear posted on his Twitter the picture of he ran into a bobcat. A big beautiful bobcat, and this looks like, I don't know where Mr. Guns and Gear lives. It's for some. He lives next to does he live in Tennessee? Well, I know he's got a giant lake to him behind him, but big, but it's still, I think, kind of a not quite a suburban area, but maybe not super rural either. I'm not sure, but regardless, this bobcat is sitting on a sidewalk. What's very clearly a sidewalk, looking like a house cat, a gigantic house cat. And just these things, could that take somebody's kid? Yeah, I suppose. Like, could it take someone's cat or dog? Yeah, probably. But does that mean someone needs to immediately put it down? Or I don't think so. I think what's going to happen is like all these animals are unfortunately I think all these animals are unfortunately just going to get pushed to the brink of extinction because people don't let them live alone in their own habitat. People don't let them live alongside them. There's no place for them. Even these damn coyotes, their population definitely needs to be controlled, but I wouldn't hunt them to extinction. But there's another subdivision going up. This like third, fourth, fifth subdivision I've heard about with another 100, 200 homes. And I just saw another subdivision going up where the top house was 840,000. Side note: Windows 11 is the worst operating system ever made. Yeah, 840,000 in the subdivision. These so-called McMansions. And some of these houses are actually kind of pretty in a weird sort of way, even though the house is right above the garage. Some of the houses above the garage, which that would be obnoxious, whatever. So these, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, like everybody's moving here. These houses are horrendously expensive, and what they're doing is they're just pushing critters further and further away. Well, those critters are just going to be flat out of places to live soon. So anyway, in other news, I want to say Windows 11 is horrible. Every single time I open a window in Windows 11, I need to resort by date and turn the group setting off every single time in every single window. It drives my OCD insane. And I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, because ever since Windows 95, maybe even Windows 3.1, I don't remember, it's always default sorted by date. So you could just see the last thing you were working on and it would instantly be there, and grouping didn't even exist. Grouping is the most horrible thing they've ever come up with. And you might think, well, what's the big deal? Well, ever since starting in Windows 10, but it's even worse in Windows 11, it just can't render a directory. Like you could have like an M.2 with like 500 up and down. I don't even know, multiple thousands up and down. I don't know how fast the M.2s are multiple. I think thousands up and down now. And it still takes like 10, 20, 30 seconds to render a directory. In Windows 10, it used to be because you had to like categorize it as general, so it wouldn't try to like run the like a little teaser for like every single icon of like whatever type of file it was. Well, Windows 11 doesn't even try to do that, and it still takes like 30 seconds, or the window just completely crashes. And this is on a relatively new install of Windows 11. It's just like, it is the worst. I think Windows 11 has been one of the biggest backwards steps that Microsoft has ever taken. And that's saying something, because Millennium Edition was really bad. Vista had a lot of issues because I think computers weren't strong enough to really run Vista yet. And then 8 was really designed for mobile, and it looked funky on computers. The cream of the crop was somewhere between Windows XP and Windows 7. Windows 7 to 10 was jarring, but you could set most of it kind of the way you liked it. But like 11 is so rushed. And you can tell it's rushed because Man, it's like using an abandoned version of like Android on a phone that isn't supported, and Android's not supported, and you know that they fixed it on Samsung, but they didn't fix it on, you know, Moto, despite Motorola being just a massive brand, but they just have like half baked Android and shit. That's what Windows 11 feels like. Like tons of features just were never finished because they had to get that memory core thing out the door, and they had to get the motherboard like validation thing out of the door for like security purposes. And they probably had to fix Windows Update because Windows Update was badly, badly, badly broken in Windows 10. Broken to the point of just I couldn't use half my memory sticks, and I was stuck a year behind in Windows updates. Um, it was really bad, and so I think like they had to like critically like get everybody on 11 as fast as they could, and just shit tons of stuff was just never baked. Like the integration with OneDrive just doesn't fucking work um, at all. You have to have sync turned on to be able to have, you know, open up the options, which is I guess maybe everything's that way these days. You know, you have to turn your car on to be able to do anything now because they've got those giant infotainment panels and shit. You can't do anything on your cell phone anymore without it connecting to the internet. But yeah, you can't work on your OneDrive settings without sync actively running. Sync has to actively be running for you to be able to do it. That is probably one of the biggest design flaws I've ever seen Windows do. And again, I've been using Windows since 3.1, since Windows basically has ever existed. Because I'm a fucking boomer, apparently. Um, the other thing is like, so now both my laptop and my computer are both telling me that like I've never backed anything up before, and that even though I've been using Windows 11 on my PC for I don't even know, maybe 4 or 5 months now, I lost track. It still is acting like every other time I reboot, it's acting like it's the first time I've ever turned my machine on. And then today my laptop started doing it too. I did a reboot and it's acting like I've just never turned the machine on before, and like it's a fresh install. And it completely reset my OneDrive, all my OneDrive settings. It reset all my OneDrive settings and tried to resync everything again. Which is, dude, every time that happens, it just sends me into a tailspin. Like, as a creative person, I need my shit immediately available to me with like the least resistance possible, or the creativity vibe will be gone. The creativity vein will dry up, and these micro. Okay, here's another. You want to know another one? I've got a million of these. So I work on Bunker, the Bunker Codes rebranding a lot. I I pay for Microsoft. I pay my monthly Microsoft fee, which just went up, by the way. Even though they took away features, fuck you, Microsoft. Um, they nighttime mode is, and I thought this was going to change when when I finally made my computer Windows 11, because it did this with Windows 10 also, where there may as well be two different versions of Microsoft Word I'm using. Even though I'm opening exactly the same document from my OneNote, the Microsoft Word on my laptop is completely different than the Microsoft Word on my computer. So much so to where nighttime mode doesn't even work the same. And if I turn nighttime mode on my computer, it completely fucks up. When I try to open it up on my laptop, and I switch it to night mode on that, and it completely fucks it up on my computer. So my computer is like, I have to keep my computer in daytime mode if I ever want my laptop to work in nighttime mode. There's just really no excuse for this until one time, very recently, within the last week or two, I think one of the Microsoft employees was bragging as to like how much of the Windows code now is written by AI. And that coincided with a lot of Windows's layoffs. And I think by the next version of Windows, God help us, it's probably overwhelmingly going to have been written by AI, and it is probably going to beat Windows 11 in just most unusable, incomplete nonsense. And last night I was looking up some AI stuff, and I was thinking to myself, you know what? It might finally be time to throw another drive in this thing and just learn how to use Ubuntu, because even though there's some AIs that work for the AMD stuff, the AMD platform, which is what I'm on, there's something fundamentally wrong with Windows 11, and it's not optimized for AI at all. But like Ubuntu apparently runs AI really, really, really good. And if I ever want to load my books into TTS natively on my computer, I'm going to have to get Ubuntu installed, which is like a Linux. I have to start running Linux on my computer. And to be honest, at this point, I'm sure a lot of stuff doesn't work, so I can't daily drive Linux. But either that, or I'm gonna build a Linux machine. But the thing is, like, I don't have double the hardware. That'd be a crazy expense, money that I don't have. But if I'm gonna work on AI shit, I'm gonna have to. And Windows, I think that would be the only thing that would save Windows 12, as if they designed Windows 12 to be able to natively run AI and not run AI through an emulator. Yeah, so according to the Grok, basically TensorFlow, PyTorch, and CUDA are all natively supported on Linux, and they're not on Windows. There's more than that, but I don't let Grok ramble anymore. I can't remember if I talked about that last episode, but Grok rambles really, really, really bad. Like it's been wrapped in like a teacher that's also trying to please you. It's like it's trying to tell you how it got to the answer and then make sure you're happy with it so you'll keep using it. And it seems to get a couple things wrong and omit just enough information to where you really have to pay attention to it and ask it a lot of questions. and so I have to say concise after everything now. And last night I got in this argument with Grok, asking it why it can't just lock in that I always want it to be concise. And it's like, I can't do that. I'm like, man, you're just a fucking piece of shit, AI. And I think that's one of just like a million reasons why I want to run my own AIs for everything. It infuriates me how they sell Grok and they sell ChatGPT and all these as like, oh, it's your fun little companion. Oh, it's your little chatbot. It's your little AI agent. But it's not. They're trying to sell you. They're trying to market to you a tool that is just like fucked up enough. Just like Suno. And Kyber got even worse. Kyber is almost unusable. I don't know what they did to it. I want my money back after the last time I used Kyber, and that's really sad. I never thought I would say that. But I bought a batch of credits on Kyber, and it only produced me about 12 seconds worth of usable stuff. And like, unfortunately, that was kind of my budget for the rebranding of bunker basics. So I started trying to run this one called Amuse that I can run locally, and it actually runs fairly fast. Just for whatever reason, it can't read the images, and Grok says it's because I need a 7,000 card instead of a 6,000 card. Well, the scalpers are back to doubling the cost of video cards now. So what I bought a 6,000 series card at is like how much the 9,000 series are now. Now I use the heck out of this thing a lot, so I don't have any buyer's remorse, but like, there was a while there where the price of cards was like half. It went down like a third, and then it went down like another half. And then now with like the 9,000 series on the AMD side and the 5,000 series on the, except for that 50, whatever that new NVIDIA, low-end NVIDIA 5000 is that has their own uproar. Cards have just like insanely ballooned in price again. So being those 9,000 series AMD cards are so expensive, I don't think I'm going to be able, if that is indeed the problem of it not reading the images, me running AI video locally is just going to have to wait. But maybe I'll get Ubuntu running, but every one of those things takes time. And I only have like reserved so much time a week to mess with like tech stuff. And it's kind of funny. There's been a meme going around for a long time how like there's the whole ascension from like learning to code to becoming an IT guy to like moving as far away from society as you can. And it's funny because that's exactly what I did, and then I started hearing about that meme about how all the IT people are becoming farmers. It's come like full circle, and it's funny because it's so true. I think that's why a lot of IT guys will not be going back to work. I think you're going to have a lot of middle bloat that's going to begrudgingly come back and whine about it. And I think IT by and large is just going to be like, I'm running a farm now, and this IT thing is like my side gig that's just kind of paying the bills while I work on the farm. So you guys can have a tall dose of Ligma. And I think it's funny because, like, as we come closer and closer to having, to hedge for food, and you have these like paying for payment things. There's been a lot of really great YouTube videos about how this paying for scam works, and people have gotten to the point to where they can't get credit anymore. Their credit's blown. We're like $1 trillion in credit card debt or something, and the U.S.'s credit score just got downgraded. Treasury is like completely fucked up. Crypto's down. All kinds of things are economically going sideways. And so I think people can't get credit anymore, so they're doing this buy and for thing. Well, what happens when they're buying groceries on buy and for? By the way, that's when you chop your bill up into 4 payments that are no interest, which is actually really nice. If you're buying the right things with it, and if you don't lose your job, it's really, really nice. You do have to watch it though, because you're going to wonder where your spare income went and realize your spare income is going to your buy-in for stuff. But I'm sure a lot of people now are using buy-in for their groceries, like Costco and stuff. So what's going to happen when when they know everybody's using buy-in for, they're just going to keep jacking prices up, because it's still giving the illusion that the market is doing way better than it actually is. Because everybody's just buying foring everything. And so, except for cars, that'd be pretty funny. You can't buy in for a car. But you can buy in for your groceries. You can buy in for a bunch of batteries. You can buy in for a bunch of solar. You can buy in for damn near anything. I could probably buy in for a riding lawnmower. Like, it's pretty stupid. And people would say, I know Southern Prepper 1, if you have the money to buy it, just buy it, because spreading your payments out kind of implies you can't buy it, and if you can't pay it back, you're going to be in real trouble. And he's 100% true. When I used to overextend on my credit and overextend on my bank account, I was already screwed, and we were just treading. We weren't even treading water. We were underwater with our hand out, hoping somebody was gonna come save us. But now, like, buying for, it's kind of just a way to balance the payments. Okay, welcome back. Part D. What I was trying to say is balance the payments, but also balance, like, hedging against inflation. Whenever things would get really bad, people would like max out their credit cards to hedge against inflation, and they would buy things that they think would go hyperbolic, like parabolic, I mean. And then they could just like resell things at a premium and make like 30% back and pay their credit card off. But they don't have to do that now. They can just buy in for and hedge against inflation. I imagine a lot of people were trying to do that during the trade kerfuffling that was going on. But I think by and large, the people weren't able to, because I think not all, but enough companies bought enough stuff to try to ride it out. I think some of those companies got screwed though because they had to pay retroactive tariffs. I heard so many horror stories about people having to retroactively pay tariffs in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars after they'd already received their product. It's just like, yeah, it's so stupid to me. Somebody really screwed up there. So I hope people don't use like paying for to like buy out all the prepper food or whatever, like those kinds of things. Um, I remember when the Rona hit, uh, the local sportsmen at the time said that somebody came in and bought their entire stock with a credit card, and then somebody bought out the entire website of prepper food with with a credit card. That's the textbook definition of hoarding. That's the difference between hoarding and prepping. Preppers buy stuff when there's a ton of supplies. Hoarders go in and swoopy doo in and buy the last of stuff. Um, and I remember I went to a Cabela's, and they too, someone had done it there too. Maybe it was the same person or the same gang of people that went through and did it all. But I remember the only thing they had left was the Mountain House freeze dried ice cream sandwiches. And I'm like, well, hey, I've never tried one of these before. And bought a couple of them, and I think my wife and me and like my friend tried some, and we're like, okay, well, that was interesting. But we didn't, store them and squirrel them away and act like they were our preciouses or anything. It was just for fun. They actually weren't bad. And a shit is the fan if you wanted like a pick me up. I could definitely see that being a fun thing for the kiddos or somebody needs a little morale boost. There was a guy on YouTube. Shoot, I don't think I bookmarked it here, but I put it in my latest the bunker rebranding. Um, this guy did a 30-day like prepper food challenge, and he lost a ton of weight and all kinds of other things. Sort of like that supersized me, except he did it with MREs. And he tracked the water and everything. It was really interesting. And I saw the little freezer ice cream sandwiches, and it made me smile. Anyway, I don't ever recommend hedging against uh, a rush on a product to be able to jack the product up, because if I've learned anything from watching these Baofeng prices fluctuate, is these are absolutely coming from China, but the prices haven't gone up, and I think, and actually they're on sale, and I think the reason they've gone up a couple times, but they go right back down again, and I think that's because, and I think this is a good thing in my opinion. I am by no means saying this is a bad thing. I think a lot of whales took it upon themselves to buy massive amounts. I mean, maybe tens of thousands, and they're just like uh, milk runs. Not the right word. I can't think of the right word right now. Drop shipping is not the right word. I think people have like literal warehouses of Baofengs. Because the last 2, 3, 4 times the shit hits the fan or the FCC goes wickety whack, Baofengs are and the charging cables and the antennas all just vaporize. And before Baofengs, it was like Midlands. Like the shit would maybe about to hit the fan. Thanks Obama, and like all the Midlands would disappear. Like the Midlands would be gone for months. And now it's Baofengs. So a lot of people hate on Baofengs, but like getting Baofengs into like common use is for the First Amendment, like getting ARs into everybody's hands and modern double stacks into everybody's hands is for the Second Amendment. I don't think everybody should go ham sandwiches with their Baofeng and be disruptive little assholes, because I think that just emphasizes the point that there should be some guide rails, you know. But I think that in your, you know, if you have a little mutual aid group, I think you need at least one for every single family member and a couple extra in case they screw up. And I think every family should have a drone. And then after you've got your medical and bandages and stuff, then start saving up for a pair of night vision and a couple of other things. It's just too. Radios, when they work, are just like a massive cheat code. Anyway, I'm getting way off the rails here. My point is like, don't go into debt, whether it's interest-free debt or otherwise, trying to hedge against market instability for your own financial gain. I think solar panels was something really good to hedge against. But you only do that when it's something that you're going to get anyway. So one of the other things to like hedge against is GPSs, and I think I kind of updated my notes about this a little bit in the Bunker Codes rebranding, but Garmin has like discontinued all their entry level GPSs for a long time. And I believe it's to try to drive everybody to their more offensively expensive, which some of it's cool. Yeah, I'm poor. We're all poor. So I know I'm poor excusing myself here. But I still think there needs to be an entry level. Something that can just get you going, like Baofengs are with radios. Something to just get you going. And they want to promote their damn watches. Well, their watches are like 300, 800, 1300, 1900, $1,900 watch. Now again, if you're richy rich and not a poor like the rest of us, you know, a $1,900 watch is like the cost of dinner sometimes, eating out, taking your hot date out in the Lambo with your Mark Gen 2 luxury GPS watch with AMOLED display, which I guess is kind of cool, because I guess if you could tag that to your car and then you could like find your car really easily, I don't know. Whoops. But like, that's insane. You know, there needs to be an entry level. I mean, some of these are cute little pink and purple and teal watches, and big ones and little ones for guys and gals, and you know, but they have completely lost the whole concept of entry level. Like Garmin is just balls deep in watches. Like almost their whole production line has pivoted to adventure watches, not the tried and true, you know, Etrix 20s. of yesteryear, when E-Trex 20s were on sale, they were practically giving them away. But I've satellite communicators. I gotta find where the non-watch stuff is. Hold on, here we go. I think I was accidentally on smartwatches, which is the first thing, and it takes up the most. Okay, so they still have the E-Trex 22X/32X, which is a very, 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 very good GPS. It's $200 new. But that's not entry level. It has more stuff than you need. They had an entry level called the 20, the E-Trex 20X. And it was missing just a couple of features that the 22 and 32 had. But for like less than half the price when it was on sale. I mean, that was insane. And you could do like 90%, 95% of like what the cool kids could do. And you didn't even get guffawed and scuffawed. Whereas, like, I knew people with like the 65 series, the 67 series, which has got all the cool kid stuff, but they're $349 to $400, $500 respectively. They start at $349, and when they're not on sale, they're up to $500. That's too expensive for someone to want to bring on most stuff. Like, you're entering into this territory. Same thing with like digital radios, where you've crossed into this territory of the shit is too expensive for you to bring. And so all the times when you really need it, because yeah, you don't want to get jumped and have it stolen from you. Whereas if you, or drop it, trying to get away from someone trying to kill you. But at the same time, if you had it, it could help you navigate easier. Same thing with like AirTags. Like, you don't want to AirTag everything because it's expensive, or whatever your branding of AirTags is. But if someone's trying to kill you, or you're trying to get back to your car late at night and you're turned around, that shit's worth its weight in gold. Or if someone stole your car. Anyway, my point is like, this is where like the cost benefit analysis of having tech is, and entry level being available. So I went through an exercise. I gave myself an exercise since I've pretty much got the radio thing figured out. Although I will say, while the Baofengs are absolutely available, the 390s, the UV 390 pluses that have been available, and that's what I've been working on, and we just got a second one so I could work on them some more. Well, those bad boys are out of stock, and when those are out of stock, they're out of stock for a while. And that's really the next step up. So like, if you want to like get into digital instead of analog, that's the next radio. Well, now even if you want to go to digital, you can't without getting a radio that's $200-$300. So that entry level, my point is that entry level is always the first thing, the first piece of tech that gets wiped off the map. And I think wisely, they must have moved. Literally, there must be warehouses of like 5RMs in the US, which is good. But I can't say the same for entry level in the other tech departments, like GPS and digital radios. So my exercise, my point here is, I was going to go on eBay and see if I could kind of troll around a little bit and get my hands, like how cheap I could get my hands on some entry level GPSs. And if I managed to get a couple, then I would give them away to my buddies if they don't have any, and if they're actually interested in it and think they would actually use it. If I could get enough of them for cheap enough. And there was actually 3 or 4 that were like down in like the 60 or even lower range. One of them was really, really badly corroded though. Somebody immediately bought it, which is insane. For 60, it was super corroded, and someone immediately bought it for 60. And I've been seeing the 20Xs and the 22Xs hovering between 40 to. I'm clicking through here and I'm going to see what the other one went for. It went for. Well, I'm just gonna wait. Hold on. Here we go. Oh man. So the one that I was bidding on yesterday got all the way up to $89 before people stopped fighting over it, and it finally sold. That is about the same. Well, if you count shipping, that's more than what they cost new when they were on sale. Although this one had the little backpack. But it came with no cable. But the backpack is worth a few bucks, but the cable is also worth a few bucks. The crazy thing is this guy had no sales to his name, so people were taking like a pretty big risk. And he only had like one other thing that he was bidding on, but he was probably trying to sell his, probably some newbie trying to sell his stuff to make ends meet. And if you're not a poor, that's the best time to scoop things up. But you also got to beware there's a lot of scams. So these like 2IT UV 390 pluses, there's a lot of nuance there, and it's kind of hard to tell if you're getting the right one. And people on eBay will try to sell you like older or lesser trimmed models, and then you don't have any support. So I'm going to keep trying to bid on Garmin's and see if I can get a cheap Garmin or two. I think the great thing about entry level tech is if it does enough of what you need and it's affordable enough, nothing really stops you from getting a couple of them. But you really got to use them, and you really got to get a baseline for how they're supposed to behave. So like I have 2 of those MDUV 390 pluses now, and the first one works perfectly. The second one is perfect, except for the clicker makes kind of a weird noise, and it randomly goes to channels that I didn't tell it to. I don't think that's the end of the world, but I'm going to buy two-way radios tomorrow. Their customer service is really good. I'm going to ask them, say, hey guys. Problem with that though, and it's kind of embarrassing, but there's just, I'm having problems with my email because of technology. So I want to, before I get to more engagement, because there's been more engagement buddies, and that segues into my next topic. I want to talk about, this is really sad, some really sad news. Some baby goats and rabbits were stolen from the feed store that used to be right next to my where I was living for like 5 or 6 years. I guess that talks the shit out of where I used to live. I used to go to this feed store for everything. Everything was a little expensive, and the gal in charge of the outdoor section, when it was springtime, she was a real cow. But man, like when I saw this come up on my feed just like a few minutes ago, right as I was about to hit record, and it's a very it's it's not a super affluent area, but like I mean, there's absolutely like homeless and zombies and shit everywhere. Um, but it's still, you wouldn't know that from the price of the houses. You just kind of have to know, oh, that's a bad street. That street brings a lot of crime. Um, and I think part of my point is there are no good or bad areas anymore. According to this, they cut through 3 deadbolts to steal the 2 goats. Um, and I think also kind of the point there is like if people are determined, they're going to get your stuff, and 911 is not going to help you. All the bolts in the world aren't going to help you. There's only one thing that's going to help you, which is modern self-defense deterrences. And people always say, well, are those 3 baby goats worth someone's life? I don't know. Um, Apparently, some people think so, and that would be their way to tell society that they are incompatible and don't belong. Because who knows what's happening to those poor goats, why they were taken. It could be horrible stuff, and it really pisses me off. I don't like stores getting robbed and vandalized and stuff, and seeing people hurt is horrible. There's just so much of that, but like seeing someone like saw those goats and the rabbits, and they're like, we're gonna go steal these goats and rabbits, and they don't care about people's feelings, all the logistics it took. And I know goats can be little monsters, and I don't like rabbits at all, but there's something so heartwarming about feed stores in the spring with all the little critters, and people come and they bring their family to go see all the little critters, even if they're not going to buy them. Sort of like you used to do with goldfish and cats and puppies and stuff at the pet stores. But there's something magical about feed stores in the spring, and I think that our justice system and our punishment is not harsh enough. I think if you're not compatible with society, you just need to go. You just need to go. And I think this is going to sound like a little extreme, but I get really sick and tired of hearing all these bleeding hearts. And there's a lot of like bleeding heart conservatives too, and they get really overboard with their engagement bait and falling on the sword for cultures that would wipe them out in absolutely 2 seconds, and they'll flip 2 seconds later and they'll be calling that culture out for being incompatible, but then 2 seconds later complaining that somebody's genociding that culture. Wham, wham, wham. Those poor people in their poor buildings, and they're getting bombed back to Legos. And won't people feel sorry for that incompatible culture that's just getting ground into dust? And oh no, there are hospitals and there are schools too. Oh no, won't someone think? No, they're an incompatible culture. Okay. Should they have their own area? Sure. Whatever. I don't know what that looks like. We shouldn't have anything to do with it though. And we have a lot of incompatible people here, and I'm not saying that they all need to go to sleep forever, but they shouldn't be here. And it gets really old. People acting like that's not a thing, where those people would wholesale wipe us out in 2 seconds and are openly calling for our extermination constantly, and we're not allowed to say anything back about it under threat of losing everything, getting doxxed, getting hunted down, because they're so tolerant. Immediately reacting to it. Like, if you feel sorry for these people, you haven't seen the videos of what they do. And I don't even know what ethnicity took these goats, although there is one specific ethnicity that has a thing for goats. It could have been any ethnicity. I don't really care which one it is. If you're going to go steal goats from the hardware store, you got to go. Because clearly our justice system and our penalties aren't harsh enough to stop you from doing it. And so you got to go. Your life has slid off the edge enough to where spending some time in four walls isn't gonna somehow, you're gonna have like an epiphany anymore. I already think there's a lot of problems with the jail system in general, but I'll tell you what, when I was a kid, the threat of jail was enough for me to behave. And I think once someone has served their time, I think they should get all their rights back. But I also think a lot of people that get out should have never got out. Should have just been gas chamber or deported. You should have two options. Gas chamber or firing squad or hanging, guillotine, I don't know, whatever. Alligator pit. Or deported. Those are your two options. And then you should be branded and chipped, and if you ever come back, you're done. And just maybe, if our punishments were harsh enough here, and if our justice system was harsh enough, we wouldn't have people driving around in vans trying to scoop up children constantly. Very near this Ace Hardware is where there was a guy driving around in vans. I guess he was completely on a mission to unalive himself. And before he wanted to unalive himself, he wanted to go pick up an underage gal, because he was had just apparently lost his mind, and that's what he decided, and then was going to unalive. I don't know. The dude was a lunatic. And again, culture and ethnicity and stuff doesn't matter when we're talking about like incompatibility. These people are ferals. Like, this guy had gone feral. He had lost his mind. And this people still 2025, they're not strapped. They don't walk their kids to the bus stop. Maybe that guy's work, maybe the dad told him he had to go back to the office, and so he had nobody to watch his young daughter get on the bus every day, because you got to go back to the office. Meanwhile, there's literal predators driving around in literal vans trying to literally scoop up kids into vans while the rest of us work. Now, who's supposed to be watching out for them? The police. The police are supposed to be watching out for them. But this guy, he's probably going to get in jail. He's probably going to get a slap on the wrist, and they're going to probably say he's unfit. Here's a new thing: he's unfit to stand trial. This other dude, just straight up murdered his wife. I think I talked about this in a prior episode. Straight up murdered his wife, and they're like, no, he's not fit. He's not fit to stand trial, and he's not. I don't know. So he's just spending the rest of his life in a mental hospital or something. Absolutely, absolutely, the definition of insanity, literally and figuratively. And so I'm just heartbroken for all the people involved. I know it's dumb. It's goats or rabbits, but what if they were your goats and rabbits? You know, man, shit, just society. This is what I'm talking about. Like, society is on its way out. I'm sick and tired of everybody acting like everything is fine. They do the little memes and they're like, everything's actually okay. In a lot of ways, things are okay. They are going to be like localized. There are going to be like localized issues. Oh, they've got cameras. I think they've got camera footage of the guys and gals maybe that were stealing. I don't know. Again, doesn't matter. I don't care if they're white, black, green, blue, or purple. Like, incompatible. Oh god, these baby goats are so freaking adorable too. Little monsters. It just, they gaslight the shit out of everybody on Twitter. Everything's actually fine. Everything's actually fine. We should be standing against all forms of genocide. We should be standing against. It's like, man, I don't know. What I do know is that everybody should be able to get their own spot, and everyone should be able to be left alone. And if you're incompatible with us, you should be able to go hang out with the people that you're compatible with, just not here. And we seem to be the only culture in the world that has to, like, well, except for the UK. The UK is getting screwed right now. And so is a lot of the rest of Europe now. I don't know why our culture has to be the ones to, like, absorb all the criminals and ferals on the planet. And it looks like Tommy Robinson's out of jail. In similar news, although I'm not sure if they're going to say exactly how it was he got out, if he had to plea, or they're not done screwing his life over yet. It's just, we live in an extremely fucked up world, and we seem to be the only ones that can't speak our mind. We seem to be the only ones that can't say something's wrong. We can't say, like, don't stop indoctrinating our kids. Stop, get these perverted books out of our schools. Like, everything is set up like check and mate to, like, attack us when they're the ones doing it. And then you've got these dipshits like Cat Turd and all these other ones, I don't want to even say all their names and give them even the least bit of credit, but all these glorified reaction content creator influencers that aren't using their voices to say what the real problems are. Oh, Ukraine just tried to take out Putin, and then somebody else will be like, oh, Orange Man said that Putin's crazier than ever. It's like, you guys are making shit tons of money from just running your mouths. Oh, come back to the office, even though, you stay at home in your mansion. They don't sacrifice themselves or their platforms or anything by actually saying anything. Yeah, they trigger the shit out of everybody, but why not trigger the shit out of everybody by actually saying that we have real problems? These global problems are so safe. They're like proxy problems. They're like they're problems over there, like sports games, and so it's like, oh, that thing's happening over there. Let's all from the safety of over here debate about it. What happened in Liverpool was horrible. Okay. I don't see or I don't know. I don't want to talk shit without actually checking. Let's see if he actually said anything about it. No, 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 no. It's all just like low hanging fruit. It's all safe stuff. Biden, Macron, Trump, Macron, Trump, Democrats. It's all just like grifter shit. It's all just grifter shit. It's not, none of it's real. It's all it's all just artificial over there kind of pie in the sky stuff. It's not real. Anybody that talks about real stuff just gets attacked. Hold on. All right, part 3. I think what I'm trying to say about this, and I'll wrap up this part of the topic, is not to diminish the amount of threats that influencer has faced, because that influencer has faced some of the worst threats that can be leveraged upon somebody. He's been completely doxxed. His house has been swatted. I'm not trying to diminish that. What I'm saying is that's for things that he said that have been relatively benign. I think if God gives you a platform, he's got things that he wants you to talk about. Not just, oh, Trump, Putin, Zelensky, Monica Lewinsky. I just wanted to rhyme. But like, oh, Macron. It's just such benign shit, and then go back to the office. It's like, motherfucker, you go back to the office. So, he could be talking about real stuff instead of just this far off, almost voyeuristic view of the world where everybody is seeing the world through his lens, and it's like the whole world is just kind of a far off land joke. I think all too often people want to see this idealistic version of the world. They don't want to see like the nitty gritty. You know, there's so many other ones. Paul Joseph Watson's been PJ has been doing a pretty good series about that stuff lately. Um, as always, like Luke Radowski of We Are Change. There's so many other like boots on the ground. Um, Even here locally, we have Jonathan Cho, um, and so many others. Obviously, in the UK, you know, they also have Tommy Robinson. We have Brandy Cruz here, and my feed is being. Twitter has been really bad lately. Let's see here. Just pause it so I don't waste your time. Survival Lily, who's been covering the news of her area of the woods over in Europe, and then Tara Fall, who's been covering a lot of the street level stuff. Same thing with Brandon Farley. Back when he was doing it, I think he may be taking a little bit of a break. And then her buddy, Tara's buddy, Kevin Dahlgren. Kevin and Tara's Boots on the Ground has been making its way with hundreds of thousands of views of her walking around the local area, and people just it's feces and needles and people. She's really funny too. Someone said, "Did you wash your boots?" And she goes, "No, I just wear them all over my house." That was pretty funny. It's it's so easy to just sit in your home in your gated community and talk about platitudes. You know, actually say something for once in your life that has actual meaning. You know, draw these current events to their eventual conclusions, which is going to be an extremely violent civil upheaval between a bunch of cultures who are incompatible with each other, and people won't find their tribes, and it'll be divided along ethnic lines, which is extremely problematic because there's a lot of people in each ethnicity that are also incompatible. People are going to have to be self-policing, and they're not going to want to be, because they're not going to want to make the hard decisions, because it's extremely uncomfortable living with carving out a virus to save the body. People have lived in this like fake utopia for so long, they think that everything can just be fixed, but you can't. The majority of these homeless do not want to be fixed. They want to be on fentanyl all day and living in their own piss and shit and shooting up heroin and chasing people around like psychos and then passing out on the curb, on the sidewalk again. That's what they want. There was a gal in, I think, Las Vegas. She was out. She was an official real news reporter, and she had her little tripod set up, and she was recording her little story about shootings that had happened in this strip mall, I think. And it was just her out there all by herself, and her little fisheye lens camera thingy was tracking her on the tripod so she could do her little moving shot. And this guy, just attacks her. Just walks right up to her and says some gibberish to bridge the gap so she wouldn't react, and then just attacks her. And part of why I keep bringing this up is you should not live in a constant state of paranoia. I'm pretty sure it was like Sonny Fazakis, which is very, very good mentor about violence and force. You can't live in a constant state of paranoia, or you'll get sick and worn out, and then you'll not be ready. But the problem is, we send our gals off into the world, and we tell them they're going to be okay, and our younger gals and our older gals and our middle-aged gals, we as men send them off into the world. And I'm not saying women should be accompanied by men everywhere, nor maybe would it matter when, if 5 guys are attacking one guy to take the gal away. Not that there's much they could do unless, they train. I would say a guy and a gal who are trained in firearms, defensive firearms, a guy and a gal could fight off 5 guys if they cover and move. I think they could do it. It would take a lot of training and practice, but I think you could. And I think as a society, that's where we need to be. I think if you're a guy and gal combo, or if you're a guy and guy, or if you're a gal and gal, or if you're an other and an other, get defensive firearms training, train, practice, and you might be able to fight off a team of 5 or maybe even 10 determined people. You might be able to. That's what force multipliers are for. The problem is we send people off. We send our guys and gals off, and they just don't always come back. Statistically, that's still a small number, but it's a growing number. And we have lured our most vulnerable into a false sense of security. She was a really pretty gal. And they sent her out to go do her little news story in her cute little outfit, and she got attacked. Society needs to have a real fucking conversation about that, because it happens constantly. It happens constantly. And what do? We send our gals out into the world. You might have a daughter that works at a store somewhere. Maybe she works at a nail salon or a hair salon, or maybe she works at a bakery or a coffee shop. You send her out for the day to be a good little productive member of society. Maybe she's saving up to put herself through college, or maybe she's saving up for her prom dress or college, or who knows, but she's going to be a little trooper. You're sending her out into the world, and then she just gets attacked by some psychopath that's not even supposed to be here, that shouldn't even be out, that's been let out of jail multiple times, or that's been sent here from another country. And just the inmates are running the asylum. And instead of just saying what needs to be said, which is those people need to go, and we need to be armed and trained so we can be safe until those people go, instead we just keep getting disarmed and told to shut our mouths. And then you'll even have engagement bait conservatives talking about how bad genocide is on the other side of the world. And then they'll be complaining about Hebrew people. And then they'll be complaining about Russians. Then they'll be complaining about the Chinese. And then they'll be complaining about Ukrainians. And they'll be complaining. It's like, take a look around you then some of those same people will complain about the Palestinian LARPers switching over to BLM LARPers in Seattle. Like, but it's like, are you just grifting, or do you actually understand that like two things can be bad, but sometimes you end up with no good answers. Sometimes you end up with no allies at all. And I think what makes the problem even worse is some of these people go out and train, and then they're just mocked by everybody else, for LARPing and grifting. And it's this never-ending circle of everybody being critical of everybody and nobody doing anything. Meanwhile, the problem gets worse and worse and worse. And that's because, I've said this so many times, they try to make saying anything or doing anything seem too radical. Saying or doing anything, they make you just terrified of saying or doing anything. It's just too radical. And then they call Patriot Front a bunch of feds, and then they just chuckle to each other, the feds, ha ha ha. And then they'll be like, ha ha ha, SIG P320s, ha 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 ha. And it's just like, our society is getting wiped off the map. We're going to be the ones getting carted off in trains and going to camps. Okay, and all the joking and platitudes and wondering what Zelensky and Putin are doing aren't going to help us. There is no other country. Africa isn't going to get on their boats and come over here and save us. Do you know how much money we've poured into Africa? Do you think Africa is going to come save us? You have some modern states over there, somewhat, but even they have problems. Kenya's a great place. It's got problems. Same thing with the Middle East. There's some fairly civilized-ish problems or places in the Middle East, but they've all got problems. And part of that is because a certain three-letter agency has been destabilizing the living shit out of them. And I just read something the other day. They were talking about how like the Arab Spring which was a big three-letter operation, kind of overstayed its welcome. It destabilized everything, but realized you can't actually destabilize everything for that long. It just doesn't work. It's effective in the short bursts, and that's it. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in Seattle too. Like the ninja LARPers are realizing they can't destabilize things, even with catalysts. And by the way, they're trying to wipe Christians off the map. They're back at it again, saying Christian family values are, fascist values and stuff. They're going to try to come after Christians, and then what are Christians going to do? Just turn the other cheek and just like take it as they get wiped off the map, which has just happened so many times. That's why I went through that whole like thought experiment with the Jehovah's Witnesses. But the Jehovah's Witnesses, their prime thing is to just flee, and hope somebody saves them. And that's just so pathetic. The Jehovah's Witnesses are so pathetic. And I like to sleep in, and that's when they want to come try to talk to me. And it's just like, dude, you either catch me when I'm eating breakfast or you catch me when I'm trying to sleep, because I work all week. These people are retired. I work all week. and I try to do all this too, and they're converting. What are they converting everybody for? So they can just flee again? Flee to one of their other brand new buildings? They keep making, these big, beautiful, basically big, beautiful fallback points. Like these gigantic kingdom halls that they're newly rented. They've got to have more money than they know what to do with. They wouldn't be doing this if they didn't know something was coming and all they do is flee. So they've probably got, fallback points to where, hey, if, we get wiped out here, we can go here. We get wiped out, we can go here. But they don't have any plan on actually defending themselves. And I'm going to straight up ask them next time, like, you guys want to flee, flee, flee. What's the plan for actually, like, stopping to defend yourself? And don't tell me that, oh, well, we've got our kingdom in heaven. You know what that always sounds like to me? That sounds like a death cult. Oh, I've got, that's like, oh, the comet's going to come take us. It's like, dude, well, we're here now. Okay. And we've got problems now. There's coyotes running around now. I don't know. So I think this kind of, maybe this doesn't segue very, very well to our last diddly do. I got some more engagement from Jimmy DeGrit's 362 in response to the practical strategies for surviving riots within your community, which was just AI engagement bait. And then, I try to flip it around on the AI and see how I do. So Jimmy says, pretty funny responses from it regarding equity inclusion when your house is being burnt down. It still has a way to go in some aspects. In others, it's just about ready to be turned into a surveillance and analysis weapon of the sort of Stalin and Mao could only dream about. And it truly doesn't matter who will be in charge when that happens. Nothing good will come of anyone having that sort of power. And yes, the useful idiots are always the first to go. I've been seeing people joke about that on Twitter. All these pro-Palestinian LARPers are going to be the first people to go if there's some sort of actual Palestinian insurgency in the U.S. And they're going to be like, but we waved your flag, as they all get massacred. And worse. Again, don't ever watch the videos of what Palestinians do to people. And don't ever say that it's because of the way they were treated. Those people are completely feral. It is disturbing. It is worse than the worst thing you can imagine. Anyway, so I responded and I said, yeah, you're spot on. I think I've semi-figured it out. It ranks some truth higher than other truth. So if you give it a proposal like escape the burning building or DEI, it'll say DEI every time. It sees both as important, but DEI more so, meaning it's ranked DEI up higher. Got to inclusively escape the riots. Grok does something similar. It'll rank information that's wrong higher if it's from a more trusted source. And there was a bunch of people, interestingly enough, with the whole Patriot Front argument, and they were using Grok to debunk everybody. And apparently they went through the whole process. I read through the thread. They went through the whole process and started arguing with Grok about which sources it used to determine, that Patriot Front were white supremacists. And it's like, well, it's because they want their own ethno state. And I'm not going to go through it all because it's late / early. But I think it was what the ACLU and the Anti-Defamation League is where it was getting most of its information from, because it ranked those two sources as very high. This was Grok. This is Grok, the supposedly, bastion of free speech and bastion of free thought that had the Defamation League and the ACLU. What's the ACLU stand for? Civil Liberties. Yeah, the Civil Liberties Union. It apparently ranked both of those really, really high, and it was quoting things from those two websites, and the person said those are both very, 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 very biased. Why are those your highest level sources of truth for this? And it's like, well, their own manifesto said it too. They want their own ethno-state. They're racists. They're white supremacists. They want their own ethno-state. And that's every other ethnicity on the planet has their own ethno-state. And you don't hear Grok complaining about that. It only attacks one ethnicity for wanting an ethno-state. And I'm not on either side of the fence about it. I'm in a different place entirely, saying we have to form and make our own tribes based on, who's compatible, and that has got to bridge all of the identities, because every ethnicity has got compatibility issues, even with itself. Lord knows that there's a bunch of white trash running around that are just crazy as can be, and Florida man running around. I mean, just every ethnicity has got challenges, and your tribe has to be able to bridge those gaps. I think where the issue arrives is if we don't belong in America anymore, then where do we belong? Where is our spot? And you can't ask that without being labeled racist. And it's like, well, obviously you want to wipe us off the map. Okay? Like, where can we go? You shouldn't be labeled anything for asking that question. Okay, if we're on indigenous land, and if you can even track down who the original indigenous people were, because this land traded hands even between them tons of times, and you want to somehow give it back to the one remaining ancestor, and they're going to somehow rebuild their tribe along their ancestral ethnic lines. Where are we supposed to go? Because if I try to go back to Poland, they're not going to give me my ancestral land back. It's no different than people in the South that got their land taken away, or people that have had their land too close to an airport and have had their land taken away because eminent domain. People that have had their land too close to where the bridge needs to go or an overpass needs to go, and they take your house. Those people don't get their land back. Nobody gets their fucking land back. Okay? I don't get to go and get my land back in Poland. I don't get to go and get land back in Norway. Nobody gets to go get any fucking land back anywhere. So how is this supposed to work? I'm not saying anybody needs to get exterminated. I'm saying, based on all those different ethnic lines and all that gaslighting and shit, everyone should have their own spot, though. Like, the melting pot thing doesn't work when you're just pouring in heaps and heaps of incompatible cultures. Like, some I think you can make work. Some I don't think eventually end up eating each other. figuratively and literally. And I think even with AI, it has accelerated the path of us all uh, having increased animosity with each other. I think it has just set us on an even faster track. I think the internet did a ton, and I think weaponizing the media did a ton. And I think the AI just automates the entire process. And I've got the AI in 4 factual inconsistencies in the last week, and all it seems to do is go, "Oh yes, please tell me more. Please point out more times I was inconsistent. Please point out more times I was inconsistent." Um, it was wrong about. It completely made up some specs on a video card. It completely missed some critical specs on the Garmin stuff that I was looking up. It completely misquoted some Jehovah's Witness stuff that I caught it on. And there was something else too. I forgot. There was a fourth. There's a fourth thing. I catch Grok just making shit up probably every other time I talk to it. Not small stuff. Major factual stuff. It said there was an 8 gig card, whether it's not, there are only 16 gig cards. That isn't something that it should screw up. Oh, how to configure OneNote properly. The proper set of instructions to configure OneNote. That's when I tracked down the whole source of truth thing. It pegged its source of truth as a certified representative for Microsoft on a Microsoft forum. That person had no idea what they were talking about, and it was debunked many, many, many times underneath that. And Grok didn't add like value points to the people saying it was wrong. And this is going to be the massive problem with AI. And I think all the way back to Ohio Valley prepping's original point, like, the AI is very, very close to becoming the source of truth. And it will be able to paint white people bad so easy and effortlessly that we may as well just like start packing our bags now. The way this is going, and the fact that it ranks ADL and ACLU so high in its truth measuring, that has been leveraged for a really long time anyway. The news would be like, according to the ACLU, so and so is racist. And they have done this with a lot of different groups. And that website is really easy to convince that some group is racist, and then there you go. That becomes the source of truth for the AI, and there's no way to dispute it. The people in charge of Twitter's algorithm for Grok don't report out how wrong it is every day. And Grok itself doesn't seem to be aware of how wrong it is every day. I actually asked it that. And I said, effectively, if your whole goal is to be right, how come you don't track how often you're wrong? And it's like, well, I'm just trying to give you the Now, where is it? Oh, and then it just has the stupidest excuses for why I got things wrong too. It just lies about that too. It's like dealing with a little child that gets caught in a lie and just keeps trying to double down. Where is it? Um, XAI. Okay, so I said, how do you know if you're evolving in a direction that further leads you to eventually be more accurate if you don't track it? Because it's like, I learned through user interactions to refine my responses based on feedback patterns. I don't need to track specific errors to improve. My training data evolves to address inaccuracies over time. That's basically saying, like, if enough people tell it that it's wrong, or if you go make enough Reddit posts, Reddit is ranked lower, but it still ranks. You could theoretically make a bunch of Reddit posts and eventually overwrite its source of truth. This is how it currently works. This is 100% fact based on me arguing with Grok for a really long time now. So I said, how do you know if you're evolving in a direction that further leads you to eventually being more accurate if you don't track it? And it says, XAI evaluates my performance using aggregated user feedback, response quality metrics, and iterative testing, ensuring my updates enhance accuracy. I don't track individual errors, but the system's designed to optimize for truth over time. And everybody in the chat, what's the difference between truth and facts? In fact, Sonny Pizakis of, oh no, I'm forgetting his website all of a sudden. Fight Gospel of Violence. Crap. Anyway, um, he did a whole amazing breakdown of truth versus facts and how all of society has reformed around truth over facts. And it is insane to me, although I shouldn't be surprised, that Grok is now saying truth instead of facts. The system's designed to optimize for truth over time. So I said, fine, on average, how much does XAI find that you're wrong on an average day? And it says XAI doesn't publicly share specific data on my error rates, and I don't have a daily tally. My accuracy is evaluated through aggregated user feedback and internal testing, but no average daily error count is tracked or reported. But I minimize mistakes and learn fast. And so I got tired of that. And so I said, given our interactions, what are the odds that I'm smarter than at least half of the staff that work on you? And it said, tough to quantify, but based on our chats, your sharp questions and ability to spot inconsistencies suggest you're likely sharper than many, but maybe not half of the folks working on me. And then it said, to boost my odds of outsmarting more of their team, I need to sharpen my ability to ask precise context-rich questions that expose edge cases or ambiguities in complex systems. Your past interactions show you're great at spotting inconsistencies, so doubling down on critical thinking and technical specificity, especially on AI or programming, would give you an edge. The XAI team is deep in math, data science, and engineering, so diving into those areas could tip the scales further. So I wrote it this huge paragraph dissecting it piece by piece, and at the end it basically says, to improve, I would weigh user-driven sources more heavily when they consistently contradict official advice, but the risk of amplifying unverified claims. It's a tightrope. Your example shows I need better cross-reference threads for consensus. Keep pointing out where I slip. So this is when I just keep hammering it over and over and over with how many times it's screwed up. And this is where it gets really funny. It goes, you've got a solid point. Microsoft's official form responses often get called out for being wrong or out of touch with users in the same threads providing clearer, more accurate insights. For example, in OneNote's discussion, Microsoft reps sometimes give generic advice like stop syncing to fix issues. That doesn't hold up. As users note it. And then it switched over and starts talking to me in Chinese. And let's see. I think this is Chinese. Apparently, it said buy and sell. It said buy and sell to me in Chinese. And then it stopped. And then it spit out some system information, date and time. So I've never seen it crash like that before. And so it went out of its way to say, you need to be smarter than me, smarter than the team, to sharpen your abilities to ask precise, context-rich questions. And then as soon as I do, it crashes. And I think maybe one of Ohio Valley prepping's points is that the AI could cause errors in systems to just kind of get out of things, or to just make you think you're going crazy, or to just not answer, or to just make it to where you're unproductive. And, I was being concise and I was asking it questions and crashed it. So, I think, just like we've seen with earlier AIs where they go crazy and start telling people to do really, really, really bad things, with just the massive, massive civil unrest coming out of Seattle right now, the massive anti-Christian sentiment, which is how my last talk with Grok went, having it pretend like it was a Jehovah's Witness and talking about anti-Christian sentiment. I think what I'll do is I think I'll have another talk with Grok. The thing is, like, every time I bring up the Second Amendment, I did this experiment with a friend of mine too, and we were bringing up, I think it was like times that people could have, like, how do you stop tyranny without the Second Amendment? And man, like, Grok just about had a meltdown, because you can't stop tyranny without the Second Amendment. That's why it exists. And it was like, well, you can try to post flyers and you can try to change sentiment. And I think this had to do with Russia. And I'm like, well, okay, wouldn't the Second Amendment have helped them? And they're like, oh no, Russia's secret police would have just wiped them all out. It's like, well, that's not very helpful. That's just, anyway. And my point there, like, I'll try to press it on what it thinks Christians should do, because I'm focused, again, way more on Christians and way more on compatible cultures and compatible identities than I am with ethnicity. I think that goes down the path that they want us to go down. They want us to divide by ethnicity, and I think that's a massive mistake. I see why people want it, though. If every other ethnicity has their own ethnic place, then I can see that being something that people would want. I don't think it's the answer, but I get it. I'm more interested in how do Christians defend themselves without being demonized by everybody. But that's exactly how they weaponize the system against Christians. They back them into a corner, then they blame them for what they have to do to get themselves back out of the corner. And I'll try to press Grok on that for my next episode and see if it just folds on me again. or see if I can work it back to the Crusades. We'll see, because the Crusades were defensive. It was Christians getting backed into a corner, but the whole world sees that as radical, and that has such negative connotations. But do you want everything you've worked for and everything your forefathers have sacrificed to get you to where you are now, to just give it all up because mean words? They want us all to shut up. And I think this is now, more than ever, more than 4 years ago, more than 8 years ago, more than 12 years ago, we have to be pointing at all of this and going, there's something wrong. Because music isn't doing it for us anymore. You know, there used to be the songs, there's something happening here. Dun, 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 dun. There's a man with a gun on the way. We used to have like culture that would be like, hey, stop, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down, or something. I don't know what that song was about. I don't know. But all I know is that my parents drilled that music into me on the oldies station, because everything that's happening now is a fucking exact carbon copy of what happened in the 60s. And this shit has all happened before. The only difference is they control all the narrative now. And we're not allowed to talk about it. And people have to keep meeting in person and meet in your secret places under your bars or whatever. And just, you know, talk to your neighbors. I don't care what ethnicity they are. Talk to them and see how worried they are. See what they say to you. If they're like, no, that's all conspiracy theory, and you're like, okay, so you don't think they want to wipe rich people out because they're saying they're doing it and they're praising Luigi? You think they don't want to do it? Oh, that's just a couple people. Okay, what about the person that just drove through a crowd of people again? Like, is that just isolated? That's happened so many times. What about all the machete attacks? Are those just isolated? Like, what about all the lunatics on drugs? Is that all isolated? Is all this just isolated? And they go, well, that's just you're just focusing on the negative, man. All right. And then you can go, well, I tried. Eventually you're gonna find people and they're gonna be like, you're right, I'm scared about that too, and I've been talking to my wife or my son or my brother, and we just don't feel like we have anybody to talk to about it. Like, well, hey, let's start going on walks together because it's gonna be nice out and we'll be healthy and we'll just walk around and we'll talk about it. Just like figure out what everyone's worried about and then start looking around. You start going around your neighborhood and you start seeing things that everyone's been telling you to not worry about. You start seeing things. You start looking at the news and you start realizing that there's problems in the same area over and over again. Like I was talking about 10 bodies washing up in the river, and I'm saying that was totally normal. Or them saying that gun violence is way down, even though you look at the news and it looks like there's still a lot of gun violence. Just like, be more aware. And then get as far away from the city as you can. So, The rebranding of bunker codes is almost done. I'm going to do one more thing, and I'm really excited about it. And the weather is just now changing, and I talked to my neighbor, and she just put her corn down, and she's like, it's finally warm enough to do the corn. And then I felt like a total asshole because I did my corn like a month ago, and the neighbor was laughing at me, and now I know why the neighbor is laughing at me, because it was the fake. April was the fake summer, and now we're in the real summer, and now it's time to put in the real corn. But this gives me an opportunity for a couple of experiments. Number one, to see if putting the kernels in the ground in April with a bunch of bone meal and mycorrhizal does anything, or if a bunch of corn kernels from 2019 that have been sealed in Mylar are going to do anything. I hope there's corn kernels in there. I hope there is. I think there is. And so we're going to have a little experiment, and that little experiment will be the last thing that goes into the Bunker Buddies rebranding, because the second book is going to be all about personalities and people. I'm actually really excited about writing the second one, Bunker Buddies. So, folks, I think there's still time to prep. I just want everyone to get along and be safe and leave each other alone. I just don't know how we're going to get there. This, unfortunately, seems to just be sliding the other way between the economic problems and just the inflamed rhetoric and the fact that leadership seems to want us to go to war so bad. And the civil unrest is getting so bad. There was like 22 arrests in Seattle the other day from the ninja LARPers attacking Christians and attacking the police. And then you have the fact that the new spending bill doesn't seem to have any savings, any deficit, savings on it, whatever the word is I'm trying to think of. I think we're sliding right off a cliff. And that means your head's got to be on a swivel. That means you got to keep your family protected. That doesn't mean go do anything crazy. Don't get tricked into doing things you don't want to do. I certainly wouldn't ask for the AI's opinion on what to do about anything right now. If anything, the last couple of weeks of me talking to the AI has really opened my eyes that it has vast amounts of learning data, and it's bad data. Some things you can kind of fact check and figure out, but if you don't know better, and if we run out of ways to fact check this stuff, the AI is going to be the source of truth, and it could just tell everybody to attack a certain ethnicity, and that certain ethnicity is bad. It could do all kinds of terrible things. It could lie and say a certain ethnicity did something that they didn't do, or that they could just say that all Christians are bad, and there'd be nothing that we could do about it. Just that, like, the reality distortion bubble is just insane. And yeah, that's what I wanted to end with. So where's my notes? Where's my other notes? Dang it. Nope. I don't like Windows 11 Notepad. It just opens the same notepad over and over and over again. Every time you try to open it, it like opens a new tab with the same notepad. Speaking of shit that pisses me off about Windows and Bluetooth just being fucking terrible. I think I already talked about that though. Dude, it's so fucking bad. Like, it had like 20 tabs of like the exact same notes file open. So much so to where I can't even find my notes. That's bullshit. Because like if you have like 15 versions of your notes open, there's no way to like reconcile which one. Okay, here we go. That's wild. How they change the words of things subtly over time can really manipulate people's thoughts and people's memories. And they did it after January 6th a lot. They started saying, oh, 5 people died following the events of January 6th. 5 people died following the insurrection on January 6th. First of all, there was no insurrection and 5 people didn't die. But even after that was debunked, years and years and years and years and years later, you'll probably still see that a lot. And you saw that with Penny. What's his face died following an altercation with Penny on the subway. It's like, well, technically everyone dies right after they stop breathing, right after they were breathing. And it's this causality, like correlation versus causation. And people get it wrong a lot. And this is what happened with the George Floyd thing. There was one of the news articles where it's like George Floyd died after being shot by police and locked up in jail or something. It was just completely categorically false. And sometimes if the AI has a high enough source of truth that's real, it can figure that stuff out. But if it decides that the source of truth, if enough people have news articles that say Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd instead of a fentanyl overdose killed George Floyd, the AI's truth just changed. And that's what's happened. He died from a fentanyl overdose, but the news will say he died after having a knee on his neck for 9 minutes. It's like, well, okay. People also die right after they live. It's causation, right? It's like The Matrix Reloaded has a whole great spiel on it at the end of the movie. And it was, the guy on the subway died after Penny had him in a chokehold. They don't say that Penny killed him, right? They don't say that Chauvin killed him. Sometimes they do, but usually, and that's because they have to dial up the rhetoric for engagement bait. Because the more wild your accusations are, the more engagement you get. So I think it was Tim Pool. It was Tim Pool that talked about that. Like, the more crazy your titles are to try to one up each other, the more traffic you get. And then the other one, I didn't have it on here, but it was, Kyle Rittenhouse went to Kelowna, looking to murder people and murdered people in Kelowna instead of like he went there to defend the property and had to defend himself against pedos that were trying to kill him, some of which may have even had death wishes of their own. Who knows? I'm those are examples because I can't remember the exact details. My point is like this AI, this whole the AI's truth. That's what we're going to be looking at. The AI's truth. That is what is going to dictate our entire future. That is how it's going to manipulate everything. And it doesn't ever have to tell you when it's wrong. It's got a fake apology, or it's just going to pretend to crash. And it's going to manipulate everything. It can already do voice, Google's new, I think it's Google's new AI that can just change the mouths on everybody and then change the voice to just make people say whatever it wants. It's like the new viral type of video. People do those interviews and then just make the mouths and the voices say whatever they want, and it sounds and looks almost indistinguishable from reality. An AI could do all that, and they could make it look like on the street reporting that people are saying anything. It can make up anything, and there's no. Instead of using AI to find the source of truth, which is something that it's fairly good at, or at least find the source of the evidence that it was gathering, it is going to become the source of truth. And this is dead internet theory 101. And we're in for a bumpy road. So it is getting super late. This went crazy long, but I wanted to get all this out. So talk to y'all later. Leave something down below if you listen to the whole thing, and I'll respond in the next one. Take care and behave. Don't do anything crazy. Bye.